Welcome, dear listeners. We're doing things a little different today on the Casual Temple. Today, we have the crew from the excellent Lodge 49 fan podcast, Pod 49, joining us today. Bart DeCoursy, Claire Edwards, Jim Flood, and Chris Lawrence. We will be discussing the most awesome Lodge 49 TV show, which follows the mystical journey of Dud, Liz, and the entire Lynx Lodge and Shamrock's crew. Spoiler alert. I encourage you to stop this episode of the Casual Temple, watch the entire 2 seasons of Lodge 49, and then listen to the entirety of Pod 49 and come back and join us. Yes, there will be spoilers ahead as we dive deep into the world of Lodge 49, exploring the hidden symbolism, amazing music, and quirky characters that makes the show hold a special place in my heart. Okay, so I'm going to start and talk about how I found Lodge 49, which I think I wrote in my little note to maybe you, Chris, or Jim or Bart, somebody I wrote a little note about it. But a friend of mine I call it the esoteric chat rooms, to quote Blaze from Lodge 49. A friend of mine, he said, hey, you guys, you should really check out this show. And it was during the pandemic. And I was like, it sounds like something I'd be interested in. So yeah, immediately sat down and watched it because this particular friend, he has an excellent taste in media. So I was like, he's got to know what's going on. And so I started watching the show and I was like, yes, everything about it was like what I needed at the time, because everybody was recommending things that were dark and scary and not, kind of uplifting. And yes, there are dark and scary things in Lodge 49, but there's a lot of like really light, wonderful things in the show that I was like, yes, this is exactly what I needed, and exactly what I was looking for. So I'm going to turn it over to you guys to tell me or tell us how you found Lodge 49 and why you're such fans.
I found it. This is Claire Edwards. Hi, everyone.
Hey, Claire.
Long time, no talk. I discovered it. My old roommates recommended it to me back in 2018. It turned out it actually premiered on my birthday in 2018, which, so I always felt like a little weird connection to it that way. It took like about, I think, 3 episodes for it to really like get its hooks in me. Like around the episode, I think it was Corpus, where the not a mummy,
Right.
very distinct, very clear about that. Not a mummy is discovered.
Yeah.
And I was just kind of blown away by how like good natured it is, and just how when I showed my dad it, he said it's like a plane ride where like it's so smooth that you don't kind of realize how far you've gone.
Ooh.
Yeah, I like that a lot.
Wow, good job, Dad.
Yeah.
Yeah.
My story is pretty benign. I just was like at the time, less now, probably somewhat because of Lodge 49. I was a bit of a TV completist, and they kept promoting it on, I think, Better Call Saul, maybe, which I was watching like weekly, as it was running. And it looked like the lamest show, to be honest. The marketing has never been good, but even those early days is like, what is this like about a fraternal order? And so, but finally I was like, all right, like at the time I trusted AMC, and I was like, let me go ahead and, hit play. I think I was like 4 episodes back. And then I blew through like 4 or 5 episodes in like, 2 days. And then I was waiting each week. And I was like, what the hell is the show? Right. Like, cause it no connection to the trailers, no connection to the marketing whatsoever. And I think actually, I know we're going to talk about the music, but I think, this is an interesting show. I like the characters, you kind of get all the kind of warm fuzzies you get even in those first couple episodes. But I think some needle drop on some song, and everyone was like, wait, I've never heard this music in this show, this kind of show before. And so that was like the kind of alchemical moment where I was like, oh, there's something else going on with the show. And then I was watching it, I think probably the back half of season 1, I was watching them as they came out. And I think I said, Bart, you gotta watch the show.
Yeah, that's exactly how it happened for me. Chris recommended it, and it was, Chris will recommend a lot of shows and books and stuff like that, and I trust them all. But his enthusiasm for it really kind of struck me So I was like, all right, I'm going to give it a shot. And I was kind of hooked right away. There was a lot of things that were going on in my own personal life. I had lost my father within that same year. In like my high school years until like late teens, I worked in a pool company. And I have boy girl twins. So,
Wow.
it just kind of struck me. And the needle drop I think you might be talking about is Lee Hazelwood. At least that's what it was for me.
That's right. I
'Cause
think I
That's
told
what I
you
was gonna
very into Lee.
guess.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I was same exact feeling. Like I had also just kind of gotten into Lee Hazelwood in the last couple of years, and so to see it in a show just kind of really stuck with me because I was like, you don't really see that kind of thing very often. And I mean, when I heard the first few notes, I was like, man, I fucking love this show. And then it just kind of continued to get better and better and better and deeper in ways that I wasn't expecting, and so the rest is history for me.
As for me, I actually didn't have a TV for about a year. Around then, my roommate moved out and took his TV, and I just kind of thought, I'm going to try to live without one for a while, and I did. But when it was time, finally time I got one, I had friends giving me recommendations, and one of them was Lodge 49. Chris was telling me to watch it, and our friend Mark, and I had seen, you know, I don't know if I saw like a full trailer or ad, but I definitely seen some imagery that was intriguing to me. So, and then, once I started, I was expecting, I don't know, I was expecting to like it just because people I trusted were recommending it. But I really just got sucked in and binged like the entire first season um, within a few days. And then, yeah, had, told Chris I'd watched it and loved it. And he's like, actually, we're thinking about doing a podcast.
Oh, yeah. That
Yeah, I
like,
had tried to convince Chris to do a podcast about punk rock music because I was listening to Cocaine and Rhinestones, and then he kind of quickly was like, "No, I'm not doing that, but I do think this might be a good idea." And then, it was great.
I think my exact thinking was, I don't think the show has any fans.
Yeah.
I think it's actually rich for discussion. And I bet you if I emailed AMC Publicity, they would give us whatever we wanted. And guess what? They did.
wow, that's so cool.
So I was like, it was like, find a niche, and like these PR agents are like begging for someone to care, right? So I was like,
Yeah.
you know what? We'll say we're doing this, and we had Jim Gavin, and that first season, I mean, it was crazy. I've never seen it was kind of depressing at the same time, but like I was like, there's it's like looking for the old gazelle on the African tundra or something like that. I was like, I think we can get a lane here.
Right.
Oh my gosh. Yeah, I think
Yeah, in
it
fact,
is.
Jim Gavin said that we'd done better PR for the show than AMC had. So I mean,
Oh,
Yeah.
well, kudos to you guys. That's good. Maybe not kudos to AMC. Sorry, AMC. We show back already.
Whatever. AMC.
well, they blew it.
Yeah. I mean, I guess I
Dropped the
can
ball.
understand because of the content of the show and the pacing of the show, but I'm the type, and I do think it speaks to a certain type of people. I know you guys talked about this on your show. Maybe people who, not to insult all their viewers or anything like that, but maybe people who like to read, maybe people who like to think a little bit about things that, a little deeper. But cased in that sort of like nice, lighthearted package that's really cool to swallow. And there's a lot of humor in there. So yeah, I think it's just a certain type of person, I think. And I guess I can understand why AMC was having trouble marketing, I guess.
Yeah, and I guess to give them credit, like one of the show's greatest strengths is that it doesn't neatly fit in a box. Like,
Right.
I don't know what the elevator pitch is for, like, do you like esotericism and like talking about grief and selling plumbing supplies in Southern California? Then thanks for sticking with me. Here's the show for you. Like, everything that makes it great also makes it pretty tough to market, and
Yeah.
that's I think, a big thing about it.
Yeah, I agree.
Pretty
Um,
anti-capitalist to boot,
Or yeah. Oh yeah, there's definitely there's that in there.
It's
Mhm.
pretty amazing they gave it a chance in the first place,
Yes.
just because of, those reasons that it really, yeah, doesn't fit neatly into any
Yeah.
predictable box.
Mhm.
Mhm.
And I think
Yeah.
there was some not confusion, but I think with Dud's character, they were trying to compare him. I know that you guys definitely talked about this on
Oh
your show,
yeah.
but they try to compare him with like the dude. And I was like, when I didn't even realize that really until you guys mentioned it on the show, and I thought about it, and I was like, but Dud's like smart though. Like, he reads really complicated books like when he's sitting in his
Dude.
car,
Yeah,
So,
well, and also he's enthusiastic about the adventure. Like
yeah,
he's not just like thrown in. Well, he kind of thinks he's drawn to it by fate, but he's like fully opted in, you know.
yeah,
He's not, yeah, reluctantly going along
right,
for the ride.
yeah,
Yeah.
He's
exactly.
also not 50, which was
He's
like kind
also
of
not
the
50.
aspect of the
Yeah.
dude.
Yeah.
That's true.
Yeah.
Right, and the dude is also, the thing that usually bothered me about that was it felt sort of lazy because it was kind of like it's like the two names are sort of similar, and then
Yeah.
I guess the look is sort of similar,
Southern
but there's a
California.
very big like, yeah, sure, but like, the dude's got like, smoking a joint half the movie, and like that's not really Dud at all. In fact, if anything, he's like a beer hall drinking kind of guy. Even that's like once in a while. It's not like the vibes that they're about are completely separate. I thought, and it's just so I remember we would kind of like at least I would read like anything that was written about it because I was so excited to see somebody you know producing anything about it, and it would almost always lead with like he's kind of a slacker, kind of stonery kind of guy, and I'm like, not really, like it's different than that. It's just it seems like a very plain brush to paint him with in a way.
Also, the dude is pretty jaded,
Yeah,
Yeah.
and Dud is an eternal optimist,
that's
No,
true.
Ernie's more
Good
the
point.
dude.
That's true.
Yeah. Damn.
I never thought about
Um, it is very Coen Brothers-esque. That's what's always, like that's actually a much better comp, right? Like it does have like sort of some Coen Brothers flourishes, or at least the Coen Brothers movies that are a little bit more comedy. It's obviously not Blood Simple or whatever, but yeah, so that always, but these writers, and they just have to find a hook on something, right? Like, and so that was the only thing people could even think about to talk about it. But honestly, like to Claire's point, how do you talk? It,
Yeah.
someone's filing a 300-word blurb for Entertainment Weekly or some stupid TV recap blog. It's it sort of defies blurbiness.
Yeah.
It's just, the size of the cast. There's so many characters, and they all have their own very distinct stories.
Mhm.
Um, so yeah, it's kind of complex to explain, I guess, just to describe.
Mhm.
As we're proving.
Yeah. This is true. Yeah, I think that's also something I was telling my husband, or we were discussing the show, and I was like, I love when shows or movies can do ensemble casts really well. And obviously Lodge 49 is amazing, because what happens when they don't do it well is I'm irritated when they move away from like the main characters.
Yeah.
But I am excited to know like what's going on with every single person. Like, I need to know what's happening, what's going on with this person, and like what's, but I'm that type of, like, that's exciting to me. I like to know um the characters and what they're thinking, what is their story arc in addition to like Dud or Liz in this case.
Yeah. There's like an expansiveness to the cast and like the plot. And I think that's a really good point. Like there are shows where I get like frustrated with like what the B plot is, like what this is just something you threw in, but everything just fits together. And like I want to know what Connie's up to in London. Yeah, like even though she's so separate from the rest of the cast,
Yeah.
Mhm.
Yes, they definitely did a great job with that. As far as like the the occult aspect of the show, and this is one of my questions because I I do practice the occult, not scary occult, cool occult, what I practice. More around the hermeticism, and that's another thing that made me stick with the show because there's definitely like all about balance and the male female energies of all the characters. But did you have an opinion of the occult or esoteric pre or post Lodge 49?
I think before, for me at least, I was kind of agnostic in like all aspects of like anything spiritual, whether it was like organized, like accepted religion or esotericism, anything of that nature. But like I've also always been drawn to magical realism and kind of how big it can be. You know, it's just like sometimes it's just feelings and trauma and wounds that are just blown up and writ large in interesting ways. And I think like magic can also be kind of, or like there's something magic about community as a whole, and like community is like an antidote to like post-industrial capitalism. And just, and also kind of a metaphor for the way that we seek other systems and other beliefs, sort of just to escape like the oppressive forces around us. But also it kind of like, since the show is so optimistic and so uncynical, and in a way that I really love, because I think cynicism is just incredibly lazy intellectually. It's so optimistic, and just the idea that magic is kind of all around us really appealed to me, and that there's the sublime and the mundane if you know how to look for it. Yeah. But
I probably kind of, I'd say of my colleagues, probably went off the deep end the most. It totally pushed me into, you know, exploring, thinking about, following rabbit holes, you know, kind of, you know, I think I did like what, Tarot Corner or whatever, where I, you know, like in you know, because that was a big, you know, so, you know, and so I started to read up on that, and you know, I've always been interested in like, subcultures and sort of, you know, alternative cultures, whatever, however you want to classify it. So, you know, to me, like these were ones that like sometimes were thousands of years old, or, you know, so that was super fascinating to me. So, you know, spiritualism is, you know, I don't know, you know, I like the fact that it doesn't matter about the show, you know, whether these things are true or not, right? Like the show doesn't really have an opinion about it. But then it also doesn't say no, right? So like that I think that part of the sort of explorer and like explorer comma maybe mentality of the show kind of opened me up to some things. And then, you know, I totally got, you know, couldn't stop reading about stuff, or, you know, listening to stuff or whatever. So, you know, whether it was medieval history or like different esoteric stuff or whatever. So just as like a hobby is probably a light word, but like it start, you know, like it added that, you know, to the point where like I think, you know, something like animism is like, that makes a lot of sense to me, you know. So, you know, so like, yeah, I would probably consider myself an animist, you know. So like if you, you know, like if you were, you know, taking a journey from like hitting, you know, play on the DVR to like, I think I'm an animist, you know. I've had quite a journey.
Wow. Yeah, I definitely think that.
Well, yeah, I mean,
Oh, go ahead, Bart.
Go ahead. No, go ahead, please.
Oh, I was just going to sort of add my words to that. But basically, in the show, it's like Dud and Blaze are on like one side of the spectrum, and then you have Ernie and maybe Liz on the other side of the spectrum. So you have like the people that are willing to go off the deep end, and the other people are like trying to pull them back to reality. And so there's that push-pull, which in the occult, there's a lot of that too, about like finding the balance and where are you on the spectrum and where do you need to like apply more of one or the other to kind of get you more balanced. And I think the show really does a great job of that.
But then in some of its key moments, like they are all bought in, right? Like you think about like the, you know, like the quest to Mexico, right? Like they all go for their own reasons,
Yeah.
right? Like, but they're all like bought in to your Claire's point about the communalism being the, the true magic, right? The bonds, that keep them together. So, Scott is getting something radically different than Dud is on that trip, right? But the trip is the bond, the spirit of adventure, the myth, even the unknown. The unknown might just be how we get the scrolls back, right? To someone, the unknown might be what the scrolls mean, but that didn't mean that their connection to each other or connection to the quest was any less strong, regardless of their personal motivations.
Well, I was thinking also about Janet, and she's going there to seek the scrolls because she believes it's the key to Bitcoin, and so that's like literally alchemical. Like it's literally turning nothing into. So she's actually also like bought into it in a weird way, like in yeah, the alchemical process of making something out of nothing. So she's actually also bought in completely.
Yeah, it's like you can, warp or pervert a concept like that if you have the kind of mentality and outlook that she does, or if you're more like some of the other characters, you have a purer motive for what you're seeking. So, yeah, I mean, it's great that it presents all those different sides. I sort of try to watch a bunch of episodes the last couple of days to prepare because it's been a
James, our
while,
scholar.
especially season 2. So there was something I actually wrote it down, and now I don't have it on me, but I can paraphrase. In the first episode of season 2, Dud and Blaze are having this conversation, and it's when Blaze asks Dud to be his apprentice because he's trying to, decipher all the Wallace Smith stuff from the secret room. And, you know, he's kind of like, why do you want me? And Blaze says, well, you saw those visions, you saw your dad and the Tongva when you were, after the shark attack, and you saw those the lights, the field of lights in Orbis, and Dud, you know, has the instinct that many of us do, and I would say this is usually me, where he's like, well, maybe, it was just toxic fumes at Orbis, and maybe it's because I lost so much blood on the beach, and those are the reasons, And Blaze goes, no, don't do that. And Dud's like, okay, yeah, like I also, I don't think that that's what it was. Like, it's like if you have a partner in believing something that other people might, you know, ridicule you for or be skeptical, um, it's a lot easier to acknowledge, you know.
Yeah,
Um,
I agree. It helps you because yeah, if he's going and saying, "Oh, yeah, that was just me hallucinating or whatever," then it's like the meaning for him and the consequences, or good or bad, of that are kind of lost, And then so yeah, Blaze is really good at like propping him up again. So you're right. I didn't consider that it's nice to have folks that kind of go on the journey with you too and pull you uh, in that way.
Marilee, I'm curious after the table to sort of like turn it around on you a little bit. Because at the time I was reading a lot of like articles about people that, for occultists or that study this stuff, or, saying I'd never seen anything like this on television, So like as someone who was already a believer or into this kind of stuff, what was it like to watch a show that like kind of dove in with this? It's not like, not like some cheesy, like the Witches of Eastwick type thing, but actually like wrestled with these things in like a way that was like both the magical and the mundane, but also like was, if you're not looking, signs and symbols, right? If you're not looking, if you just think the people at the lodge are hysterical, you're going to, you're probably not going to catch a bunch of the references or whatever, but they were some pretty, deeply embedded like stuff in the show. What was it like to watch and like, oh my God, I can't believe that this is actually like a core theme and plot of the show?
Oh yeah, it's kind of, again, kind of being nerdy about it. You're like, ooh, they dropped this thing, and like, oh, they're talking about, oh yes, they're talking about a little bit of the Hermeticism, and but Dud and Liz are twins, and they're male and female, and it's like they're one being, and I'm like, well, it's like all the like geeky stuff about that. And then one of the things that was really fun was, at the one of the conferences that were the conference that Liz goes to, they were like, oh, or she's like, oh, are you going to the cloud of unknowing, whatever talk or something like that to, I think it was corporate that she was talking to. And I was like, cloud of unknowing, because like a friend of mine actually wrote like an intro to one of the new editions of the Cloud of Unknowing. And so I was like, oh, so I was like, oh, that's so cool, or whatever. Yeah, so it was stuff like that I was excited about, like hearing things that you don't hear on normal TV discussed, but in a fun way, because to be honest, a lot of the people that I know in the occult community, the ones that I connect with, they're all like wonderful people, because they're all like very sensitive and very thoughtful, and they like to have deep discussions about weird stuff. So it was like, oh, you get to see it on the screen. And it's not, and usually about 99% of the time it's like a horror movie. So you're like, oh man. And probably, and not to like deviate off into like talking about movies, but A Dark Song, if any of you had seen that, like I highly recommend you check it out when you're in the mood for like a horror-ish movie. A lot of us occultists were excited about that one too, because it also had a little bit of a more magical realism bent and maybe a kind of positive ending. And we were like, what? So it was like really exciting. So seeing that film come out, and then I saw Lodge 49, I was like, oh, awesome. Like somebody gets it. Like it's not all like creepy people in robes, trying to rule the world or anything like that. So it was really cool.
Yeah, oh, go ahead.
Now I was just going to say that, like, when I was watching it, I just sort of a lot of that stuff was just I kind of was like oblivious to. I was like in the background. It was almost like a garnish on the show a little bit, and it didn't really stick at all that it was like something necessary to sort of pay attention to. And I would say that to some degree that the alchemy that I was paying attention to had much more to do with like the characters and coming together, and how like one person being entered into the group then can affect this other person, and how they were all sort of came together to kind of help each other in different ways, in ways that they hadn't seen. But then as the show went on, and of course, it's very fun when they go down to Mexico and they grab the bowling bag and they're, running through that wonderful scene, which was really comedic, but like exciting.
Yeah.
That sort of by the end, I was kind of like cheering it on. And I think, being raised Catholic, the idea of the occult has always been something very, very scary and kind of, it's like, I guess it's like not of God. So it's therefore like sort of satanic, or it's a distraction of some sort. So it's like the devil's work in a way. So it was like really, there was something very like nice about how the warmth that is behind it. Like, well, what if, in a way, like, it's not all these things that you think, but this magical realm actually presents this kind of idea of like its own version of heaven, where like, human suffering can end by coming together. And so like, it kind of, and then I really enjoyed, because we did the podcast, I'd go back and watch the shows, and I'd take notes, not only on what they said, but what was in the backgrounds and stuff like that. And that's when I picked up a lot more on a lot of the symbols and stuff, like sort of like what's the tapestry that's behind your head almost reminds me a lot of the things that were on the show. And, so I came away with it, and I'm certainly, I think, a fairly optimistic person. And I was, rooting for there to be some sort of magical solution to the lodge's financial problems, like as if somehow there was some like ancient computer set up, and it had been mining Bitcoin the whole time, since the 50s or something, and they were going to stumble upon this like mountain of gold, and then we could all like enjoy the lodge. And I didn't want it to go away.
Yeah.
But the show plays around with. Oh, go ahead. Go ahead.
I think that's a great point about like how the occult, like especially how it's used in this show, kind of brings heaven back down to earth, and it like makes us see it in community. And I think that's a really great point. And like what's really lovely about the show is that we don't have to wait for heaven. It can be here if like we help our neighbors, and like and find meaning and beauty in each other.
Yeah.
And I think the show does a good job of pointing out like these sort of like fallacies of all these kinds of belief systems. So this belief system or any kind, like so a Blaze type, right, is no more ridiculous than than the corporate pseudo spiritual workshop, right, which is mining much of the same ground. Or there's a lot of commentary on Catholicism that's embedded in the show, where obviously the critiques of capitalism, with like the lemon stand. So like the show, the multi-level marketing, right? So the show actually like the show, it also shows you like how ridiculous these things all are to a large degree, right? Like whether it's capitalism or organized religion or kind of like the dominant, I mean, is there any bigger religion in America than the religion of corporatism? So like the show's like, oh, it's okay. So why not believe in these ancient scrolls? Or why, like the whole thing is a can of make believe, right? So like, why are we criticizing what can of make believe you decide to take off the shelf? And these ones happen to be more human centric and more community oriented and more real to people's lives than these other, than the corporate mumbo jumbo or, the kind of pseudo spiritualism. Even at, I'm so bad at remembering these things, but even the TGI Fridays, Shamrocks, like even like the restaurant culture that, like even like you must believe and you be a dedicated employee, right? Like, so there are these like these belief systems that we just take for granted as we cast others to be somehow outside the norm. And I think the show, without even taking, it just says like that it's all bullshit to a degree, and it, so why not this bullshit?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Or like, I mean, more to your point, in a way, it's like, no, the corporate, psychobabble is the bullshit, really, and the other stuff has a lot more meaning, and really, because and maybe because it's considered bullshit, like once the importance is taken away from it, then people can kind of get into it more than sort of it being fed down their throats, right? So like, if you let humans respond in a human way, they're gonna gravitate towards these other things because they are, they might seem mystical or something, but at the end of the day, they're kind of more towards bringing people together. Whereas like the corporate sort of lingo and stuff is about like, divide and conquer in a sense. Right. So I agree with you what you're saying. Exactly. I think it's a great point, but I think he's actually kind of saying that if there is one that's bullshit, it's the one that we all accept. And if there's one that maybe we should reconsider, it's the, what we've all considered to be, like crazy or whatever,
No, I agree. I think we're saying the same thing. I'm just saying, like, if you make everything ridiculous, then it's easier to pick this one because it actually becomes the least ridiculous one on the shelf, just so to speak. Yeah. So, like, you almost have to you have to make it all like hogwash so that the real stuff can, because it's just dominated by the hogwash.
Right. Okay. Yep.
Yeah, that's
Gavin is interesting because he definitely I've read a bunch of interviews with him and obviously the show and listened to him. I don't know if you know what but he's obviously into this stuff. Like, I mean, he's deeply knowledgeable, like now it might just be like a hobby or he's just a history nut or whatever, in other ways, he's kind of like your, typical bro, loves sports and, all that stuff. So like, he's like kind of an interesting guy as a kind of messenger for this, right? Because he's kind of like the all-American California kid to a degree. But then, he can go on. I mean, he can go on for hours about this stuff. Like this, it's the stuff is that real and that research because he knows it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, he definitely does.
But then he's also a scholar of James Joyce and Thomas Pynchon. I mean, he's very broad-minded. Like literally, like knows a ton. Like it's insane thinking about like all the stuff that he knows because he does it. A lot of his like he. In this book of short stories, I almost fell over when he was talking about Len Bias. I'm like, where does it end? When does he stop getting like more and more amazing? Like I'm from Maryland, so that touched my heart very deeply. So, but yeah, the guy's amazing.
Dear listeners, Len Bias was a 1980s University of Maryland basketball player who died of a crack cocaine overdose the day after being drafted by the Boston Celtics.
Thank you,
It's
Chris.
Yeah,
just-
I guess I should
I
have.
just
I was about to say, like, man, I don't know if these.
I still can't
talk
about
about
it.
Doesn't know who he is.
I
Yeah.
just feel like I have so much more to learn from you guys. Like every day. Every day learning more and more.
No, he was celebrating being drafted with a little crack for the first time, and then he never made it to the Boston Celtics.
Oh boy.
Yeah. Oof. Oh.
Sorry to bring us down.
Oh no, that's okay.
Yeah,
One of the things that was kind of early on in the show that I was like, and then I didn't realize until watching the full series, because you see what happens to the characters in the show, was that the scene where Dud is like, I think his car stopped right in front of the lodge, but he hadn't gone in yet. And then he's like laying there, and then like a jet flies over. And then in the series, you learn that it was the Jupiter. It was called the Jupiter, and it was the last plane to leave Orbis.
Yeah.
And like Jupiter and like the planet, and then what the symbology of it is like wealth and expansion. So it like left. And that's basically what happened to the city of Long Beach, is like everybody's like losing their job and having to work temp jobs if they can get that temp job. And so I was like, ooh, that was good. But I didn't realize it until I rewatched the show.
Wow. Man.
Yeah.
Examining the scrolls.
Yes.
Marilee, what did you think about the whole, the predictive paintings? I thought it was interesting today because, there was a combination of like some of these things came true, and others, the person like Ernie was like, "I'm gonna put on that mariachi suit." There was like a combination of like free will and I don't know, whatever. But
Yeah. I like that you said it was like free will, and then maybe something guiding it, like El Confidente kind of guiding it in a way. Like Ernie should put on a mariachi suit. I'm gonna draw him in a mariachi. Like what was the thinking? Did he really see it, or he just wanted to see Ernie in a mariachi suit? Like who knows, really? But yeah, I loved it because it's a lot of times that as an occultist, or Chris, you read tarot. It's like if you read it for somebody else, you're just trying to be like, this is what I see. You tell me if this, or does this resonate with you, so it's kind of like what those paintings are. It's one person's perspective of what, they see the future going to be, whether or not it plays out that way, or exactly the way that El Confidente sees it. That's the fun part. It's like, does it make it any less fun or magical that he was doing that? I don't think so. It's fun both ways.
yeah.
There's so much about, whatever you want to call it, modern occultism, that's about, setting intention and like max creativity and imagination. And, so these are like, if you can imagine it, it can exist, right? Like that, but that's a pretty transgressive thought if you think about thousands of years of organized religion, right?
Yeah.
So like this, the idea that your intention, your intuition, your kind of radical creativity, these run counterintuitive and in fact, often, kind of regulated to the nth degree by organized religion, especially of probably the big three, right? So like those things became renegade, right? So like in some ways, and so like that, like you can imagine it, it can exist is a pretty like, whether you're creating particles with your mind or moving lead to gold, but like through most of at least Western thought, the idea that you can imagine something and then make that reality exist was not, that was frowned upon, if not, violently, put down.
Yeah.
So like that is a transgressive thought.
I agree with that. Yeah. Now I'm going to be thinking about that for the rest of the evening, because that was really good. So for the series, now I loved you guys had a really good bookend to your show where you would say who was the alchemist of that particular episode, and you would all go around and like say this, I think it's this person for these reasons. But for you individually, who do you consider like maybe your own personal alchemist of the whole series? That's kind of a big question. I don't even know if I have an answer myself.
I mean, like for me, it's always going to be Jackie Loomis. Like it just always is. Like I I think she's so interesting. And I mean, uh that episode, circles, yeah, like it's just one of my favorite episodes of television. It's so beautifully directed. Like she's she literally created Bitcoin. Like she literally created
Yeah.
Bitcoin. Like uh she I don't know, rose through the ranks despite like being a woman in the 60s. I guess she did have to like assisted suicide someone, but no one's perfect, like no one's perfect.
Right.
It's fine. Like it was hard to be a woman back then.
Yeah.
And
Sometimes stuff happens.
yeah. And
Hey, it was his idea, and she just changed her mind.
she just changed her mind, and that's fine. Like I'm so tired of people telling women what to do, like yeah, I think for me it's always going to be her. And also like she created, little Larry Loomis, and he's so important to the series as well.
Yeah.
That's a good question.
Yeah, I mean it. I mean, I somebody else speak. I don't know who I'm going to say or I would just say a general thing. Like, I mean, as the main character and the way
Yeah.
his life intertwines with everybody, like as much as I love so many of the characters, it does seem like the answer to this is Dud, really. I mean, but I don't want to be the one to just sort of blather on about Dud. But I mean, unless you want to talk in terms, that's why I like the like per episode, because then you could sort of, on this one in particular. But I guess then I'll leave Dud to somebody else, and I'm gonna say maybe Blaze. I guess if I have to have a non-Dud, alchemist of the show, just in the sense that I just think that he's like, I mean, I have a soft spot for him as the bartender for sure. I love the way he's the bartender there, and because the lodge itself means so much to him. But then he's also the one who's studying all the stuff. He gets kind of thought of as crazy for it. Then we learn a lot about his past, and like kind of how important the lodge is to him, having like sort of bummed around for a while and felt kicked out of his own family, and then finally found a family through the lodge, and how important it was to him, and just kind of and how quick he was to defend the lodge, I think, too, against like terrible policies. He had a very very natural good instinct of what was right for the lodge and what was wrong for the lodge. And I just thought that there was a very good combination of his like human side that we see when he's fooled by, is it Avery, the guy that kind of sort of con artist that kind of comes in, and then and then also all his studying of that, his I love when he is like proven right with his like wacko science of like, or pseudoscience of medical science, when he pulls the thing out of his nose, which is a wonderful
Gross.
scene. And then of course, he also, like I'm sure after Dud's shark bite, he goes to the hospital, right? But they don't find that last tooth, which is then infecting his leg. And of course, Blaze does that as well. And so I'm just gonna go with Blaze. I think he's like a very I can't say underrated character in the show, because he's obviously not. He's top billing and stuff, but in terms of his like dedication to all things like spiritual and alchemical, and then his also like duties to the lodge and understanding the rules, and then just being a great caretaker of it, and the man behind the bar that knows everyone. I'm gonna go with Blaze.
That's a good answer. I was waiting to see if anyone else said Dud, for the same reasons. It's like, it's kind of, he does, unlock the key to the entire thing. And but I don't know. For me, I always have been drawn to Liz, and I really appreciate how, she keeps finding herself in these tough situations and just sucky circumstances, and she tries to make the best of it. Her choices aren't always to her own benefit, but she's a survivor. And, she does support Dud quite a bit, letting him live with her. And um, even though she's, can be kind of stern with him, um, I think it's mostly for his own good, or she at least intends it that way. But I feel like, I don't know. I think it's hard to say one person when it's such an amazing ensemble cast and so many characters that just, are so special. But yeah.
I guess my answer will be kind of hyper literal in a way. I'm going to say Bert, the pawn shop operator,
Yeah.
because
Mm.
he's kind of the old wizard in the castle, right? Like he's the one that, like, with his books and his ephemera around him, and knows all. Oh, this is the coin. It's worthless. It's the lodge down the block, or he's changing he's constantly manipulating the value of things. He's turning bikes into money, and all kinds of things, and then not all, but many of the characters actually have to go through him to move on to different things. Even Ernie, right? He's there selling the TV. Dud's and Liz's dad, Liz. Like, the many characters to actually like go and sort of see the old wizard in the tower, to get things changed for them. And then he plays an important part in like bringing those characters together, even if it's kind of cynical or whatnot. But like the old the person trying to turn lead into the gold, it wasn't necessarily like the greatest guy in the village. He was kind of. So like that to me, I mean, it's very literal because he was a money changer but that one he was always kind of a secret alchemist to me, because he was kind of the quiet puppet master to a degree.
I'm so glad you said Bert. He was my second choice. Because like there's also like the alchemy of the watch, like that is a fake.
Yep.
And so he accepts like more money than he should for it. And like there's a moment where Herm like is looking at him like, oh, you have a soft spot for this kid. And he's like, no, I know the Dudleys. They're sentimental. I know he'll pay like thousands more for it. And but yeah, it's like the dark side of alchemy. Which Blaze has a whole speech about how like there's the literal kind turning lead into gold, and then there's making something from nothing, and like the transformation of the human soul. Yeah, I'm so glad you said Bert. He's so good. Yeah. Yeah.
Oh yeah, Bert's definitely one of my favorite characters, because I see him as like the ruler of the underworld that they all have to go visit.
Yeah.
And like Hermie, I call him Hermes. It's Herman, but he is like Hermes because he's going between worlds all the time. He's always in the pawn shop. He's always having to go out. He's on a little scooter putting around.
Yeah.
So yeah, and an end in the occult and things, and in people's lives. But we talk about the element of change is having to go through the hard stuff, and Bert's not, or Bert's more than happy to be the hard stuff for the characters. So I like that you guys chose him too.
Yeah.
Who was yours?
Yeah.
I was trying to think. Well, I remember talking with my friend. I don't want to say his name because he's a shy person, but I was like, I don't know. When I started watching, I was like, I don't know. Am I Dud? Am I Liz? Am I both? I don't know. I feel like, but ultimately, I think as a woman, I do identify a lot with Liz. So Jim, I'm with you on that train. Just because, I'm the oldest child, even though I know you guys discussed on your show how we think actually Liz is the younger twin. But she, she's like very much the fire. Like I would be so, as like somebody who's like into astrology, if I could get their birth charts, I'm sure maybe her rising sign is different than Dud's, and she's got like a fire sign. But and I thought it was interesting during the series, like to kind of balance her energy. She was always going in the freezer or having to be cooled down or dunking her head in some hydrate water.
Jumping into the ocean.
Jumping into the ocean. Yeah. So she's always trying to balance that. And you know, so taking on a lot of responsibility, feeling responsible for people, not wanting to accept the help of others. I was like, Liz, oh, you gotta like let go of that, because you know, I feel that was who I was probably 10, 15 years ago. So I was like, oh, Liz, you're speaking to me. So
Liz might be a little bit of a reverse alchemist, though, because she was
Ooh.
really good at turning something into nothing. You know, she was really good at self-sabotage.
That's so true. Oh my
But no,
gosh, yes.
she's also just an incredible character. I mean, I love them all. Don't make me choose. God.
I know it's hard. It's so hard.
I think one of the things I'm most angry about, which is a long list, that season 3 was ripped from us, was that was going to be, I think, the Liz season, right? I mean, like the way it ends, and you know, with the sort of like whatever kind of moment she has as she enters the lodge, and then I think that, you know, the budding relationship that she was going to have with Linda Eamon's character. I mean, I think we really, you know, I mean, I haven't done it, but I'm guessing that a season 3 would have been a lot of Liz's journey. Not that we didn't get a lot of Liz in the first 2 episodes, but I think that transformation, was coming in season 3. I think that was probably one of the big story arcs.
Yeah.
Wasn't there at some point did Jim Gavins mention or something, or was it? I don't think it was a rumor, but like that there was going to be 4 seasons. They were going to represent the elements, and so fire would have been one of them. You know, and so it could have been.
Fire was 2.
Like you're saying, Liz is very. Well, fire was 2, so we already saw it. Okay.
And then I think the 3rd one was going to be Earth, because he ends up in the Earth, like at the end of the, and then the first one I think was water. Yeah,
it was. Yeah.
Then, it's just a real bummer. Like,
oh no,
it's deeply uncool.
Yes.
Yeah.
I can't watch. I've so many times I've like been like, oh, I got to rewatch, and you know, we did such an intense rewatch. What was it, of season 1, right? We did when we had the guests and stuff. So you know, which was my 3rd or 4th pass on season 1. I've never done the same thing for season 2 because we didn't have the motivation. And I don't know. It's hard for me. It's too depressing to go back and watch.
Aw. Yes. Yeah. To learn what could have been. I know. Well, kind of on that speculation front, because we didn't get a 3rd season. One of the many cliffhangers was, like what happens to Marvin Metz, who is played by Paul Giamatti, who is, my God, the most hilarious thing. I mean, the whole show is hilarious, but like his like little cherry on top of everything was just amazing. So what do you guys think happened to him? I don't know.
Girl, I'll tell you what happened to him.
Okay.
He discovered a little website called twitter.com. We now know it as X. And he got deeply canceled after saying that his books don't appeal to women because they're too muscular and masculine. Like now, he's sad. Like he might be kind of a leader of Proud Boys, but I don't know. He does have a sensitive side. Like I'm pretty sure he got into a little trouble on Twitter. And, but like the diehard fans, I'm sure still have his back, you know.
At least he wasn't. His muse wasn't a 14-year-old, as we're learning about some other famous authors right now.
It's true.
Yeah.
Oh my God.
Yeah.
Well, he would have been big on Twitter then, because I mean, I'm sure Elon would have taken him under his wing if he was canceled.
I'm sorry. Yeah, you're right. This is a real.
Yeah, you gotta mark your year, right? Like
2 times.
Yeah. Okay, sorry. This was like this is when like people were still getting kicked off he wouldn't have been kicked off. He would have had his fans, but like he would have been canceled in a way. No, he probably wouldn't have been canceled. You're right. Never mind, guys.
well, canceled and then resurrected.
Yeah, a real Louis C.K. moment for him. So, yeah, just that's and then maybe he becomes like a model for like turtlenecks and blazers because it's a strong look.
Yeah, it was.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm sure there would have been. There would have been interesting things in store for him if there had been a season 3. They probably would have run into him again for sure.
Paul Giamatti's power in Hollywood must not be that great because he could, like, I mean, he was out there lobbying.
He
but, like,
was.
yeah, but I mean, I guess his power is only so strong.
Yeah.
So, Marilee, you
Yeah, I
watched
mean,
it. Oh, I was going to say you watched it post-pandemic.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, when it aired and when we first watched it and started the podcast, it was before, COVID or even the thought that could happen. So I'm just wondering if, like, seeing it for the first time in this era now brings up different feelings, about kind of the themes and the meaning as opposed to when we were watching it, which, I mean, times were not the greatest in some ways already, but
Yeah. I mean, I think definitely, I mean, there's the very obvious one is like the toilet paper was like, oh my gosh, you guys are like psychically looking at
Yeah.
the future
Yeah.
about him dragging that toilet paper around.
Oh, that was huge.
Yeah. But like I said, I was watching it during the pandemic and I was just, it was just kind of a nice light because everybody was trying to do, what do they call it? Doom scrolling. Like everybody's watching horror movies. Like it was just very heavy. And I was like, I can't do that. And I'm like, I don't, and I was trying to like distance myself from the news. Like I don't watch the news and I don't do any of that stuff anymore. But so it was more like, oh wow, this is something that is very different, and that I'm very grateful for. But I think just seeing it post pandemic is, or I guess during the pandemic too, is just just reminding me how it was just such a nice literal light. For me, it's like watching media. All I can add for that.
I mean,
It's when it had its moment, right?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
We recorded, I think, the second season of our podcast during that because that's when I joined you guys.
Yeah, when we had the guests and everything. Yeah.
Yeah, we had all those guests. And that was a nice like reprieve.
Right, that's true. Nice. It was, yeah.
Something to focus on.
Yeah.
Probably made it easier to book those actors too.
yeah, they had nothing else to do.
Yeah, now that I think about it, good point.
I mean, and I'm not just trying to.
Well, no, I mean, let's be fair. They were
all of them.
I was just looking at our descriptions of our episodes. I was like, oh yeah, we had that person and that person. Like, damn, we got like, got all the bigs.
Well, they were all more than happy to do it. Every single one of them.
What?
They loved the show so much.
Yeah, I mean, we didn't really get turned down by anybody. And it was more to do with the fact that they just sort of wanted to talk about it. And I think, I mean, did we talk to Wyatt after it was canceled? Right? Yeah.
Yeah.
We did that. All of them
were after.
All of them. Right. So if if it hadn't been canceled and he was getting lots of roles and stuff like that, maybe he wouldn't have had the time, I could see. But I think it was because, it was all one of the theme that kind of was through all of them, I think, was how special it was to them. It was like beyond just a good gig or whatever on a show. They just truly kind of loved it, and they loved the scripts and they loved Jim. And but it is remarkable that we got them, but it was also, I thought, remarkable that they were all so like happy to do it. Like it wasn't like I could give you 20 minutes on Tuesday morning. It was never like that. They were all very, very pleasant people, and just I was pleasantly shocked by it.
Yeah,
and easy to talk to too, right?
Yeah. I mean, I think it was when we. This is actually the Claire's origin story, though she wasn't there for this part of the event. When we did the, which is just before COVID, strangely enough, when we did the Long Beach Comic Con, and we asked, I mean, we get 7 or 8 of them came out. I mean, we booked so many guests. I remember we had to do bring the guests up and then dismiss them and then bring another round of guests up on on the
Right.
panel. I mean, it was crazy that they all came out. That was so much fun. That actually felt like the lodge that afternoon. And then we met Claire at the drink meetup later on
Yeah.
that night.
Yeah, did. That's right. And
Yeah.
then I think like we connected again because you put out something on Twitter or somewhere looking for someone to help edit the podcast, like put in some clips from the show in it, and I was like, I got the goods. So let me.
First thing you did was, remember, we wanted to do who would be your lodge mates. Like, remember,
Oh,
everyone was doing that.
yeah.
Who would be your what's it called, quarantine group?
Yeah,
and
quarantine pod.
Pod,
you did the graphics for, like, pick
Yeah.
your pod or whatever.
That was very fun. That was fun. Yeah, that was really cool. Yeah, and then I started on the show, like, as a treat
really?
for helping out. Like,
Elevated things.
oh, thank you. Shucks.
I think your first appearance was on the Mad Men book club, right? Your first on Mike.
Yeah, I think Middleman.
Middleman went. Yeah.
But
Yeah, Middleman. I was like,
I would join a Mad Men book club. I didn't know there was a novelization, but I'd join it. Yeah, we did the Middleman book club. I think very early on in the pandemic.
Yeah.
if I recall.
Yeah.
Still one of our most downloaded episodes, strangely enough.
Really? People do read
Yeah.
books. That's amazing.
Yeah.
It's so cool. That's great. Yeah, and
by
then
the way, it just hit me. I'm sorry.
oh, go ahead.
I think I know what L. Marvin Metz would have done, and he would have created a submarine type thing with video game controllers. But instead of going to see the Titanic up close, it would have gone into the middle of the earth and still
Oh,
killed them all.
Tom Stone.
I definitely thought you were gonna say he was gonna have like a podcast. Like you say,
That's
No,
like,
he's done with all of that. He's
Yeah,
gonna
he's
do
like
real
kind of a
adventures
Luddite, I
now. And
guess.
he's
Yeah,
gonna
yeah,
create
yeah.
the submarine himself. Yeah.
Tom
Right,
Stone can
okay.
drive a submersible.
That's true.
Yeah.
If Tom Stone can do it, he can do it. So yeah.
I guess he's our white whale.
captain.
We never asked for Paul Giamatti, but he didn't say no. We just never asked.
We didn't ask. I think maybe
Him and
we're
Bruce Campbell.
True.
Like,
yeah.
Yeah.
Well, we had a little plan. We were going to try to go see Bruce Campbell at some signing
that's
he was
right.
doing, and then it fell apart. And we thought maybe
he was doing a drive-in. They were doing like Evil Dead. They were doing like a Bruce Campbell at the drive-in, and they probably were touring, through half the country, and we were gonna go. It was in the one in New York. But it didn't happen.
Yeah.
He probably doesn't even remember shooting it.
That's true too. Yeah, I forgot about Bruce Campbell too. He's on that show.
still
They
think
got
about
so many
when
good
they-
people. Oh my god.
Cheech Marin.
Cheech Marin. I
Cheech
know.
Marin. That
Yeah.
is something I'm gonna dock AMC for. Is like, do you know how many people are enthralled to Bruce Campbell? Like, how many people would have just tuned in just to see him? Like, you need to promote the hell out of that. Like, that's like the number of white boys alone. Like, it's staggering. Like,
So true.
yeah, you would have done some insane numbers. Right.
Claire, why can't you be AMC's marketing person?
You reach out to him for me.
Put in a good word.
Yes. Oh man. Well, yes, thank you for everyone for speculating what we think may have happened to L. Marvin Metz. Let's see. So this is the thing I wanted to talk about probably the most among all the great things we already chit-chatted about, but the episode of your guys' show that I enjoyed the most was the one with Thomas Patterson, who is like the music guru, I think was the title or something that he had on the show. Because among all the wonderful things about the show, one of the things I was like, wow, this has a great soundtrack, and it's not even music I like, or I even really listened to, but I was like, this is good. Like, all of it is good. And so, so I was really happy that you guys got to talk with Thomas Patterson. And
he's awesome.
Yeah, the music was huge, I thought.
Mhm.
Yeah. I mean, even there's like composed music. I forget his name, but we met him out in the
Oh.
Andrew
Comic-Con as
Carroll,
well.
I think.
Ooh,
Andrew
And
Andrew
Carroll.
Carroll, yeah.
Andrew Carroll, that's right. Andrew Carroll. And then, of course, also speaking of which, Thomas Patterson's wife is Genevieve
That's
from
right.
Yeah.
The
when they're in
Muse.
Mexico.
Mm.
The Muse, yeah. So, but yeah, I always thought the music was just like hit after hit after hit. There's even a playlist on Spotify for those that are
Mhm.
interested. I think it's called Larry Loomis's Jukebox or something like that.
There's
The Lodge 49 soundtrack,
Yeah.
and it's
Definitely.
great.
Mhm. And I mean, it's significant that Cold Hard Times was such like, a pull for both Bart and Chris. And like, I had even written that down as one of the things that appealed to me. And I was like, I think I'm incepting myself. I think that was actually what Chris and Bart told me. And also, it's just such a great song. It just and the willingness to kind of cast such a wide net, but it also feels so cohesive.
Mhm.
The use of like the song like the Seventh Seal during Ernie's
Hmm.
jump through the hoop, and then like Laquette by like when the Muse sings that song from Don Quixote, which like it feels on the nose because they are on like a little quixotic quest, but it's
Yeah.
it's so perfect. um
Well, yeah, Nature Boy too, right?
Boy, I was just gonna say, yeah.
Nature Boy, gosh, yeah. um
He doesn't have a music supervision credit since 2002, which is just a crime. So ridiculous. But he's like a mover and shaker in, the sort of British hipster music scene. And to me, what was so fascinating about that interview is just how deep the lore goes between him and Jim Gavin, I mean, here's a 20-year friendship, bonded over music, been trading mixtapes and stuff since they were like college kids, turning each other on to stuff. So like, to me, those are the kind of like magic that imbues the production of the show, right? It's like it was happening behind what we were experiencing on the screen was happening behind the scene, and that was the editors, the costume people, like the music supervisors, the composer. We talked to many of those people as well, and we thought that was important because, and they also the same thing. Like there was magic happening in making the show, and I think that really comes through. And so, and when he was talking about we're all big music heads, and so like he's like out there finding, but he tells that story of like trying to track down the rights to some like random 45 that he
Yeah.
had and stuff. So like that stuff was just like super fascinating. So he was on his own quest, right? Like so like all these things like they all make their way on into the magic of the show. But yeah, he's a fascinating guy. Remember he early days of COVID did because he runs like a music magazine in the UK and stuff. So he did a whole all day concert where he got like 25 bands and then they just would like bounce around to different like Zoom rooms or whatever. And there was like a set, the times and stuff. So yeah, he's a fascinating guy. He and his wife and then Sonia Cassidy, they sent in an audio message that for the Long Beach
Yeah.
Festival. They're like, this is so great. We wish we could be there and stuff. So it's just like, I don't know. They just were like salt of the earth people. I want to go to a party he DJs. That's what I'm like. We should let's all fly to the UK and see when he's like DJing some party or whatever.
Yeah.
I'm sure that's happening.
Yeah, and I'm down for sure.
One thing for
Sounds
me
good,
is, I feel like you did a really good job of including songs that were moving and emotionally resonant, but never like sappy or maudlin or either like often I'm watching TV and I have to press mute because I'm like, I hate this song. Like I hate the song they're playing. It's terrible. And like even this show, I just watched this show, The Day of the Jackal, kind of binge that over the weekend, which whatever it was all right. But too much of it was just like trying to turn montages into just music videos. I'm like,
Yeah.
it didn't complement the show or the story or really even the imagery. It was just like, let's throw this obvious song in there that everyone knows and just like
Yeah.
it's still a little thought to it.
It's like emotionally manipulative, and like there isn't like this show is so good at coming like at just being like emotionally resonant without tipping over into manipulation. And that extends to the music choices as well.
Didn't he tell us? In fact, I think it was like if it gets renewed for a third season, he'd share it with us. But he had playlists for all the major characters. Like he had 20 to 40 song playlists that defined each character in his mind, just for prep. I bet you most of those songs didn't even get anywhere near the actual final versions of the episode. But that was his prep. This is like the Liz playlist. This is the Ernie playlist or whatever. That's amazing.
Mhm.
I love that playlist. Oh my gosh.
I know.
It's so great.
I know.
That'd be very
he
cool.
teased us. He teased us and said, maybe I'll give it to you one day, but alas. Oh, man.
Anything else we want to
I
talk
think
about
so.
the music? Or move on?
Well, the one thing is that they actually made a soundtrack,
Oh, they did?
but it was like this. Yeah, there was this company that would only do digital versions of it, so you could buy it. I think I bought it for like $9.99 or whatever. And it wasn't everything; it was only like 12 tracks. But I was like an annoying person. I was like, when are you doing a limited run on vinyl? Like, like press this into a record. Do like 5,000, whatever. Tell me your price. And they were like, we're not doing that. It's like this weird company that will like. It's almost like a boutique label that does like digital versions of things that not many people want. And then I think they had some like, well, if it sells enough digitally or whatever, then maybe we'll consider pressing it to record. And he told me, but he said bug them. But it didn't, like just like everything else, there wasn't a mass of people demanding that they press the official soundtrack into vinyl.
Oh, darn.
But for me, that is one of the, lasting effects of the show. For me, I go back and listen to that soundtrack pretty often. Not just for nostalgia for the show, but also because it's great. It's, great music.
Yeah.
Yeah, I would say, I think the way I was describing it, it was like, it sounds like a lot of psychedelia, which I think Thomas Patterson kind of mentioned in your guys' interview with him, because that's kind of the vibe of the soundtrack for the most part. There's obviously other things that aren't necessarily in that category.
You can still purchase the digital version. The digital version still it's still out there in the world. Came out in December of 2019. And it's got 15 tracks, including Susie Kane, aka the Muse, aka Thomas Patterson's wife, version of Nature Boy.
Oh, lovely.
Awesome.
And it's got some of the Andrew Carroll score stuff on it too. Which I'm convinced, by the way, if you've watched Only Murders in the Building, and I like every time the intro to Only, I'm like, they ripped off Andrew Carroll. It's like, if you go do like a compare and contrast, the Lodge 49 theme and the Only Murders in the Building theme. I'm like, God damn it. I'm like, that's, like they lifted it.
Yeah. Only Murders in the Building are catching strays on the podcast.
I know. I, every time I watch it, I look for his name, even though I 100% know it's not going to be there. I do love looking for, like, Nina Jack was one of the executive producers. She's the one that sent us all the swag. She was like, nobody else cares, and I have an office full of swag, so I'm sending it to you guys to distribute, and we distributed it in Long Beach. But she's a producer on the Apple show Silent. Like, I look for the credits. I'm always in the hunt for and they're out there, not in the behind the scenes people, the actors, I think every time that like Linda Eamon, who's awesome, in fact was on Only Murders in the Building, pops up, we're like, oh, there she is, because she probably works the most of anybody, probably, right? Isn't that probably fair? Even more than Wyatt Russell.
And she's also in the Gilded Age.
Yeah, I think so. She's I mean, like, she's not quite a character actress, but she's versatile, and I think,
go to bed?
yeah.
What's happening?
Bart.
Sorry, Bart. Bart.
The twins.
Yeah. 1 sec.
Oh, no worries.
So I've been doing this kind of guilty pleasure binge on Netflix of Madam Secretary. I don't know if anyone's ever watched that show, but it stars Taya Leone as the Secretary of State. It's sort of West Wingy, and like it gets pretty silly. But Linda Eamon is on that show very rarely, very occasionally. She is the wife of one of the main characters, who's this like curmudgeonly White House chief of staff. And the whole thing is like he's always like yelling and screaming at people, so he has a heart attack. And so that her role on the show when she pops in is only to be like, you need to don't eat that. And like you should be doing yoga. You got to get your
Give a
blood pressure
scold.
down.
Oh, she was on Succession, right? Wasn't she like a right-wing lawyer on Succession?
She
She popped
was
up
on
all over.
Succession.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep, she
Good old
works.
Linda.
She works.
Yeah. I feel like the blooms come off Wyatt Russell a little bit, though. That Godzilla thing with his dad didn't work, and
Oh,
like
no.
he's out there talking the lake hour. Come on, we need to get him a good role.
Yes.
Mhm.
Um,
Yeah.
He's so cute.
So
Well, he
kind
played
of
that psycho in the Mormon movie.
the Mormon.
Oh, he was good in that. That's right. He
Oh,
was
yeah.
good in that.
With Andrew Garfield.
Yeah,
Mhm.
he
Yeah,
was
that-
psycho in that. Under the heaven of God, or
It might have
Under
been
the
the
banner of
Andy,
Under the
heaven.
banner of heaven.
yeah,
Oof.
yeah.
Mhm.
All right, now we're
like
just
Andy
nerding out on
Griffith
you.
in
Now.
Yeah.
Rein us in.
yeah, all right.
Anyway,
Well,
let's
it
all
kind
step
of
away
is
from Wikipedia.
no worries. Kind of similarly, sort of a good segue, I think, into sort of similar shows. I don't know, Jim, if that was the show you were discussing was a show that is similar to Lodge 49. Because I feel like there are some things that came out since then that are kind of similar. But do you guys have any show recommendations that kind of have the same vibe?
So sorry to take this from like because we've been talking about this show in the group chat, which
Oh.
is Somebody Somewhere.
Ooh.
On HBO. It's a really lovely, simple show, like about Bridget Everett and like going back home to Kansas to be with her family after her sister died. And yeah, it's just a really lovely show about kind of found families and also healing with your own family.
Ooh.
Yeah, and I mean, it's tough to find a show that's similar to Lodge 49. There are a lot of shows that are similar to it in different capacities.
Right.
Like I was thinking about The Bear, especially seasons 1 and 2, because it's about exploring people's capacity for growth um and it's more optimistic than you would expect it to be, like just from the first couple episodes. I think Jury Duty is great at like in terms of like having faith in your fellow human beings. And if you're looking for something that has like shared genetic material, with Lodge 49, I would say like Mrs. Davis, which like Alethea Jones is one of the executive producers of, and she was one of the directors on Lodge 49. And it's similar in terms of inventiveness and interesting narrative.
Is that the one with Betty Gilpin?
Yeah. It's
Okay.
a great time. I also have movie recommendations, but I'll let someone else go.
There's the show Patriot that is similar in that it has kind of quirky characters and unexpected situations that in some ways, seem similar to some things that happen on Lodge 49, but it has a more cynical worldview and it's kind of about people doing bad things as opposed to,
Yeah.
community and coming together and for the common good. But it's funny. It is a funny show.
Somewhere somehow would be my pick because I agree with Claire in terms of like it's about found family and community, and it doesn't care about its pacing or it's intentionally like low and slow and all those things. It's not. I mean, it doesn't have like the look and feel that's similar. It's not.
No, yeah.
It's an ensemble, but much smaller ensemble cast. But but it has it's got the same soul, I think, probably,
Mhm.
and some of the same like you know somewhat conceits. But I got to be honest, and there's plenty of shows that I like, but I don't think I've found anything. I don't think anything has been the same. And even though I still watch a ton of stuff, I watch less after, it's been like, and I think part of it is like, there's other things to explore and, like it was almost like it didn't ruin TV for me, but it like, it degraded it.
Broke it.
My like obsessiveness of it was nowhere near the same after.
Yeah.
Although I did enjoy for a while, I think it was when season 2 was on, Succession and Lodge 49 were running their season simultaneously, or like right at the same time. And it was a fascinating duology on the commentary of late stage capitalism. Obviously, much different vantage points, but like the worldview was exactly the same. It just one happened to like be focusing on, the sort of quote unquote dead enders. I don't believe that, but that, would be, and then, obviously the power elite. And so to watch them as a compare and contrast, knowing that they probably had the very, very similar modern critiques was a really kind of fascinating yin yang.
Yeah, I'm glad you said Succession too, because I had that written down as something that's like the other side of the coin with Lodge 49. It's like they're kind of saying the same thing, but it's just this is like they both have the same worldview. And that it's kind of a dead end for characters in the rich elite side as well. Like it's just that kind of everyone suffers under capitalism. I mean, like, I don't know. I don't want to say that rich people suffer under capitalism. I want to take that back. I want to take that back. I want to go back in time. But it just creates divisions, and the result of those natural divisions are like the Roy family.
Did you guys see how they just admitted that? Because the real Murdochs are going through a whole, like, how are we going to divide up the empire? Literally, like, right now.
Yeah.
And they I can't remember what exactly the plot point was. So my story's not going to be as good as it could be. But they basically said, let's do it like they did on Succession.
Oh, no.
Talk about, like, through the looking glass moment. They one of the Murdoch kids said, they had it right on. Let's try what they did on Succession. Yeah.
Who watches that and takes that away, like, as the message? That's just
the Murdoch kids. They're like,
we need media literacy. It's so like, my God. But like, Marilee, do you have any shows that you think are similar in terms of like occult and sort of esoteric content?
Well, I don't know about shows. Like, I think the movie I mentioned, The Dark Song, is a good one to check out. If you're in a kind of spooky mood. But as far as like similar shows to Lodge 49, the one that I really liked was Reservation Dogs. I don't know if you guys have seen that. It has, like some of the episodes I don't think were this strong, but there were some really good episodes, and I enjoyed all the characters, so that I think shared in common, and of course sort of the magical-y realism stuff that's in that. And I think that it balances tragedy and comedy very well, similarly to Lodge 49.
I am furious with myself for not coming up with that answer. Like, I'm from Tulsa. I'm from Oklahoma. I used to work like with Sterling Harjo, like the showrunner. And and so I'm just like so mad. Like, I was even thinking about it earlier. I don't know why I didn't write it down, but yeah, like all your points, exactly that. Like, it offers an alternate system to like, white Judeo-Christian capitalist everything, and it focuses on community. And I am furious with myself for not saying that. I'm so sorry, Oklahoma. I'm so sorry, Oklahoma. I haven't forgotten you.
Bart, do you have show recommendations?
I would say that, to me, I sort of feel like there isn't I don't know if I'm being too cynical or whatever, not to be cynical, Claire, but I just sort of felt like the show was special in so many, the layers that are happening of the way that the show is sort of done. To me, it seems like impossible to recreate, or I don't think that we'll see another one like it. That's just the way I sort of, so there's plenty of shows that I love, and there's shows that I think are fun, and I on their recommendation I started to watch Somebody Somewhere, and I would agree that that's sort of community basedness of it kind of reminds me of Lodge 49 in a way, but then I think that Lodge 49 just has so many other sort of layers go onto it, and it's nothing to take away from somebody somewhere, but to me, it's hard to imagine that. Like, it's such in a class of its own, that and possibly because the way it like appealed to me through the music or whatever, but just there was so much depth going on, and what I really loved was that it's like there's a whole show that's happening that you can watch, and then without even knowing half of the things he's referencing most of the time, and then when you dig deeper to it, and I think there might be shows that would be also like that, which have like, oh, you can follow the plot line, but then, oh, did you know he was referencing a Thomas Pynchon novel? Did you know he was doing this? Did you know he was doing that? But then I don't think that they would also have like the heart and the community, and then like the comedy as well, and the note that it hits for me on the heart is a very, very specific one that I don't imagine that I would see in other ways, in other shows. I don't imagine that I'll be struck like that by a show kind of ever again. I mean, it's who knows, it's possible, but to me, it's a very unique and specific and special like thing, that it's hard for me to even imagine it would be replicated in some way. So, but I'm watching a lot of anime with my kids because it's like kind of fun they can watch it and I can enjoy it. And I'm going through my anime years. So.
Dangle Bart.
Yes.
Yeah. There's a lot for Christmas coming.
Oh. Well, thanks, Bart. Yeah, I agree. It's kind of a hard one to kind of compare. So thanks for sharing your feelings on that. So we're kind of wrapping up here, everyone. So we kind of like share like where people can find you, if you want to kind of shout out your different, places where people can learn more about you, or what you're kind of up to, if you want to share. So I'll kind of leave that.
I mean, I'm on Instagram. I have a long handle. It's Claire_and_present danger, like Claire and present, like the Tom Clancy novel. It's fine. Claire and present danger. I'm not really active on anything else these days, but you can find my editing reel, things like that. And photos of me and my partner. That's actually what I got up there right now. So yeah. Me. And also we have the pod. Oh no.
What happened?
Oh, I thought everyone froze for a second.
No.
And then obviously we have the podcast podcast Instagram, right? It's pod 49 just on Instagram.
Is it? I was trying to remember.
Yeah,
who runs it? Is it
you, Jim?
Podcast? Shoot. Hold on.
This should have been the easiest answer.
Yeah.
We're the worst self-promoters.
It is Pod 49 podcast at Pod
There you go.
Podcast on Instagram. We got some old videos like we cut together to promote stuff. I think
Claire did the greatest video bumpers for those episodes. It was fantastic.
Thank you. Oh, I wasn't fishing for that, but thank you.
I think you can get the link to the podcast archive.
Yes, exactly. And I don't know what the boys have they want to promote here.
Not much. I'm not too out there. I have an Instagram, but I very barely post on it these days. I'm not on that.
Bart, pitch the bar. There's got to be somebody coming to.
Yeah.
All right. I am. Since during the podcast, it was a restaurant called Sidecar, and since then I've changed it to a bar called Rulo's. But you can come by and see me there anytime, especially Wednesday nights. I co-host trivia. I do love to jump behind the bar and be Blaze whenever I can, but it's less and less these days. But I'm around a lot, and that was another part of the Lodge 49 I just loved, is the literal the lodge part of it. I'm a big fan of that. So yeah, and I guess it's Rulo's Brooklyn and on Instagram, and I don't do. I mean, I'm on Twitter myself, but I don't really post anything. And yeah, I just post stuff for the bar on Instagram. But stop by and see me anytime.
Yay.
Yeah, Marilee, when are you coming out to the East Coast?
Oh, well, I probably sometime next year. So yeah, if I'm definitely in the area, I'll hit you up.
Yeah.
So,
Marilee, when are you
Come out to
coming down to
Brooklyn.
LA? They love occult here.
Oh, do they? Yeah, that's true.
They
They do.
love it.
They do.
Yeah.
Actually, I'll be there in May, I think, because I'm
No
going
way.
to the Cruel World Festival. I've been going to that the last few years.
Cool.
Which
What is
like,
that? That
Oh,
sounds
is that
fun.
the one where Till Tuesday is reuniting?
Oh, yes, that's the
Yeah,
one. It's got
I-
like goth and post-punk music, which is my jam. So me and my friends always go.
I will see you for a drink after.
Yay! Okay, cool. That'd be awesome. I love it.
I don't know when this will air, but I do Instagram, Chris Larry 33. I'm now on Blue Sky. So just search Chris Larry 33. You'll probably get me there. A lot of good, by the way, a lot of good occult groups on there, by the way. That's a
Ooh.
big group on there. Yes.
Mm.
But it's just, I don't know, this probably airs after Christmas, but I have been enjoying doing my I actually don't think they're horrible, so I shouldn't be that way. But I review Hallmark Christmas movies on my Instagram.
Yes.
So
They're really
that's been
good.
my
I love your
pop
reviews.
culture commentary for, but those will dry up obviously in January. I'm a
But there's
strict
archives,
Thanksgiving.
they're on there.
They are there. I'm a strict Thanksgiving to New Year's Day. It can't happen before or after.
I can't remember which one, but there was one of those reviews that I was like, I think I might actually watch this. I don't normally watch those, but I was like, sounds like I might actually
It
enjoy
could have been
this.
many of them.
Yeah, that's true.
There's a great one last year, actually, that I think was set in Norway, and they filmed them there too. But it actually had an occult sub theme, and they had a scene where I think the dad and the love interest daughter, whatever, were talking about life, and there were all these 7-foot wooden gnomes circling them in the forest. I was like, okay, we're at a different level for a Christmas
Spooky,
movie.
yeah.
I'll
Chris,
send you the name of that one.
Oh,
Chris,
please.
are you thinking of Midsommar?
Oh,
No, I mean, well, they
I get
things off.
how those movies confused too. Listen, it's fine.
No, this movie was good.
Ah,
Yeah.
oh.
Midvintar, I think it was called. Yeah. Boy, a lot of people catching strays.
Right.
Coming for you, Ari Aster.
Sorry.
Coming for you, Only Murders in the Building.
AMC.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Whatever. I feel bad. We're kidding on the rest of you. AMC, you're dead to me.
Yes, I know.
The Walking Dead network, and that just doesn't describe your show.
Yeah. Oh, that's a good burn.
Get their asses, Chris. Get them. But thank you so much for having us.
Oh,
Yeah.
yes. Thank you.
Yeah.
Your regular audience is going to be like, "What?"
I know, but it's okay. Hey, man, it's casual. I already set it up. We can talk about whatever. So we usually, I kind of have in my regular episodes, I have folks kind of share words of wisdom. And so I let you guys some words of wisdom that have occurred to you lately. It doesn't have to relate to Lodge 49, but any if you would like to share, we can close out.
You can cut some of the dead air, right?
Yeah.
I know, it's words of wisdom. I know.
Words of wisdom.
I mean, I just kind of want to reiterate something that, like I said, that sort of I think Lodge 49 in particular was a show that really resonated because it made me feel there's mystery and there's healing and there's redemption that's all couched in the mundane. And that if you look for it, you can find it. And that maybe the universe isn't done surprising you, even if it seems like it is. And I think that being present can reward you with revelations like that. And yeah, that's it. Mm-hmm.
Words of wisdom that I've heard since we're talking about late stage capitalism. deny, defend, depose. That's the most wise
There you go.
saying I've heard in some time.
And with that,
Thanks, everybody.
You can cut that out if it's too dark for this
Nope, I'm leaving it in.
But, you said lately.
Yeah, I did.
yeah, that was a good one.
I'll let Jim think because I know he's a
Yeah, I have nothing.
Okay.
So I'll say I'll give a little bit of a brighter one to Bart's, but I'll say, but not dissimilar. I'd say one. I'm glad we got to take Weird back, even though that was a good dig. Like, I'm pissed off that Weird got co-opted as a way to make fun of the right. Weird's ours, goddammit. So be weirder, be more local, support your people, but expand who your people are. Those are my words of wisdom.
Yeah, love it.
We're taking Weird back.
Taking Weird back.
Love it.
Oh yeah. Well, thanks you guys for letting me.
Jim, come on, Jim, you gotta have one.
You have one, Jim?
I can't think of any of my own. I can only think of from Spinal Tap. Have a good time all the time.
There you go.
It's perfect. What a
That is
perfect button.
perfect.
Like, come on. Are you kidding me? You were sitting on that? Like, God.
Wow. I'm glad you spoke up, Jim, because that's a really good carrot on that. Yeah, thanks you guys. I'm so happy. Thank you for letting me reunite you to talk about Lodge 49 and talk about your podcast.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, it was so fun.
That's fun. I'll see each other too. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. Good to see y'all.
That was great.
Thank you so much.
Your support means the world to us. If you've enjoyed this podcast, please take a moment to like, comment, and share it with others who might find this content valuable. And of course, don't forget to hit that subscribe button to stay tuned for more enlightening discussions. Your engagement helps us grow, and we appreciate each and every one of you. Thank you for being a part of the Casual Temple community.